Welcome to episode 123 of the Family Answer Man, where today we're talking about protecting your family from emotional abuse during the holidays from a biblical worldview on the Family Answer Man. I am your host, David Orgis, and I am here with Dr. Mark Crosby. He is a pastor, he is an educator, he is a mental health professional, and he is the resident expert here on the Family Answer Man. Family Answer Man is not a therapy session. We're not able to give specific advice to your circumstances, but we do believe that spiritual and mental health are very serious issues. So we want to encourage you that if you have more questions following this episode, definitely seek out professional counsel for your unique circumstances. Before we jump in today, if you would hit that notification bell and subscribe to our YouTube channel, that really does help us out a lot. And if you're listening on a podcast, if you will rate us and review the show, that gets us to the top of people's feed. And as always, you can directly help us grow the Family Answer Man community by sharing this with your family and your friends so they can join you on the journey of having a happier, healthier, stronger family. Well, Dr. Mark, good to be here with you today.
Yes.
Big question. Holidays are coming up.
Yep.
We've got Thanksgiving coming up. We've got Christmas coming up, and even New Year's, the whole holiday season is filled with a lot of excitement, a lot of joy, but also can be filled with a lot of anxiety and stress. And I think that's something that most people know and realize and have experienced.
Right.
But we're going to be talking about something unique today in the middle of just schedule and the stress that comes with that, and trying to, get good gifts for people and spend time with people that we love.
That's right.
A lot of people, I think, deal with this idea of emotional abuse during the holidays, and some may not even realize it. Do you find this is a really common issue for people?
Yeah, what happens is, of course, during the holiday season, you want to get together with your family, maybe friends, maybe coworkers, different holiday gatherings, etc. And what happens is that sometimes there is a unique mix of family members and friends and coworkers, and sometimes that in that mix, there's going to be someone who's emotionally abusive. And we'll unpack that more in a moment. But that person that wants to deride you or demean you publicly, that person who wants to say unkind things about you in front of the family, or maybe at the office, gathering, and they say things that are very unbecoming and deriding about you. And so this sort of thing causes a lot of anxiety for some people, because they know that this person whom they've not maybe had too much interaction with during the year, but now they're here at this company gathering. Now they're here at this family reunion or whatever. And what's happening is that they dread what they're going to say, because they know this person is emotionally abusive. They know this person is prone to say things and even do things that are unkind and, again, denigrating, etc. And so because of that, a lot of people come into these places of holiday scheduling and gathering with dread.
Right.
They come in, very anxious. They come in with a sense of maybe PTSD. And so a lot of people look forward to the holidays, but when it comes to maybe this person showing up, or that cousin, or that brother-in-law, or that father-in-law who always says something unkind, there's a sense of dread. And so what do you do about that? And what have we done about that in the past? And how does this unpack, and how does this work in our families, in our places of business, et cetera? And so again, emotional abuse is real. It's something we need to be very mindful of, especially when we're coming together for a unique time, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. But when there is that emotional abuser in the mix, it now causes dread and discomfort for a lot of people.
Well, this is going to be a great topic for a lot of people.
Yep.
If you want to have your questions answered, you can email us your questions. You can email familyanswerman@liveoak.church. That's our email address, familyanswerman@liveoak.church. And we love to get those questions. This is a question that's something that has been asked that I think is going to give us a great show, another great show today.
Right.
And so we'll go ahead and I'll read the question and we'll dive in. It says this. It says, we've decided not to invite some extended family members to our Thanksgiving holiday because we believe that they're emotionally abusive. We have some in our family that are telling us that we're wrong and we should be gracious during the holidays. What do you think?
Well, so again, there's that, dilemma that we've talked about, and that is the Thanksgiving holiday, the Christmas holiday, the holiday season. is a time for family. It's a time for gathering. It's a time for maybe reuniting. It's a time for reunion for many. You haven't talked to those cousins or those in-laws or maybe that sibling or even those parents or grandparents for weeks or months, and now it's the holiday season and you want to get together. But unfortunately, for some families, maybe for more than we want to realize, there is going to be that emotional abuser, that person who wants to come into the holiday season, into the setting of the home, and to say things and do things that many will say ruins the holiday. That Grinch that wants to come in and ruin the holiday. And I've heard people say that, after the holidays are over, my in-laws came over, or my brother came over, or my cousin came over, and once again, they ruined the holiday. And so more and more people are realizing and recognizing that this is not right. This is not what you're wanting to do for the holiday season. So let's define our terms. I think that's important to note.
Right, yeah.
Let's define our terms. Because whenever we talk about emotional abuse, a lot of people aren't quite sure what that means.
Right, which then you run the danger of people just assigning their own definition to it and maybe not having the same discussion that we're having.
Yeah, if a person has a bad temper, for example, or if a person maybe has having a bad day, let's just say that.
Right.
That's not necessarily emotional abuse.
Okay.
But emotional abuse is basically anytime someone consistently, and that's the word, that's the key word.
Okay.
Consistently insults you, consistently derides you, consistently denigrates you, consistently distorts what has happened or what's going on, consistently dismisses you or someone else in your family. That is a sense or a definition of emotional abuse. In other words, whereby a pattern is created. And that's another key word. It's consistent and it's a pattern. Emotional abuse, therefore, creates a sense of dread, anxiety, depression, and PTSD. So first of all, it is consistent. It is emotional, and it creates something inside of another person. In other words, if someone else feels dread or anxiety or depression or PTSD, whenever that person enters the room, in other words, when everything now is your fault, that person walks in the room and they want to start blaming you for all the things that has happened over the years, and it's your fault, and you're a terrible person, and it's not even true. In other words, your identity is being stripped by them. That is a sense of emotional abuse. So abuse is a pattern, in other words, that doesn't stop. So whether it be physical abuse, emotional abuse, it's a pattern that doesn't stop.
And that's where we get back to consistency.
And that's, again, back to consistency. So again, I'm not talking about the person who had a bad day or, they weren't feeling well or they just kind of snapped or lashed out, because of some situation. But this person, the emotional abuser, consistent, creates a pattern and makes those around them feel a sense of dread, anxiety, and depression. So again, abuse is a pattern that doesn't stop. It is harmful and it's intentional. It's intentional to ultimately destroy another person.
Yeah, well, I think that's important too.
Very important.
Yeah.
And again, this abuse is done for the satisfaction of the abuser. In other words, they're feeling large and in charge. They feel like they're in control. They want to feel smarter. They want to feel as if, they have the right or the authority to say or do. They walk into the room, and no matter whose home it is or where they are, they walk into the room and they want to take over. And they feel like they can say what they want or do what they want because they're the, person who has, all the power in their mind. And so abuse is a pattern of using control tactics to break a person for the abuser's advantage. I'll say that again.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, abuse is a pattern of using control tactics to break a person for the abuser's advantage. So again, so many cases, the wife feels as if she is just, no longer has a voice, or maybe the daughter who wants to have Thanksgiving at her home feels like she no longer has a voice because this person is going to be large and in charge, or someone else, maybe even the grandmother, wants to invite all her kids, but there's one who wants to come in and be large and in charge and wants to abuse the others and wants to take advantage of the others because maybe he's the oldest or she's the oldest. And so abuse is a pattern of using control and using these control tactics to break a person for the abuser's advantage. So let's talk about the abuser just for a moment. Who are we talking about when we're talking about the abuser? First of all, the abuser has a sense of not caring.
Okay.
They don't really care that they're abusive. They just want to be in control. They just want to dominate. They just want to take over the conversation. They just want to put others down. They just want to be insulting. They just want to make others kind of squirm a little bit. They will bring up topics that they know that the other person is sensitive about. They'll talk about, hey, you've gained weight, haven't you? Or you really voted for so-and-so, or whatever. Or, how's that, situation going in your marriage? Or that operation didn't go well, did it? Or whatever. So that they know that what they're saying and doing is, again, very hurtful and insulting. But they don't care. They don't care that they're abusive. They don't care that they can insult maybe the person whose home they're in. It's like, this is a small, dining room, isn't it? Or the turkey really, it's like the Griswolds. I mean, it's kind of like exploded in my face. You don't know how to cook. Or so they say things that are very insulting. They'll demean maybe the football team that you're following or whatever it may be, but they don't care they're abusive.
Is it always direct like that, or is it sometimes? Do you find that it's indirect of the very southern, like, oh, your home is so quaint?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it kind of depends. There is passive aggressive emotional abuse.
Okay,
where a person basically is saying very insulting things, and everybody realizes it's kind of insulting, or like, hey, was this your first turkey?
So they use kind words, maybe even a kind tone of voice.
Yeah. Maybe I can help you next year. Yeah. And so they say things and do things that make a person, again, this is the point, feel as if they are incompetent, or they feel as if they're not, they feel like they're unskilled. They feel like that they're not good enough. And so you begin to see this begin to happen, especially when families get together and it's during the holiday season. Again, for the abuser, they believe that life's about them. And that's one of the key things about the abuser, that life's about them. They're not there to help others. They're not there to lift the burdens off of other people. They're not there to be, a sense of care and concern and joy and bring that sense, of life and love into the setting. They're there to basically be the ones who feel like and believe that life's about them and everything should be to their standard. They believe they're entitled to this level of control. Sometimes this may be, the oldest or the youngest, or this may be the loudest in the family. But whatever it may be, they believe they're entitled to this level of control. They may be the most successful. They may be the one who drives up in the expensive car, or they may, live in the expensive neighborhood. And so they want you to know that because of their fame and their fortune, that they have this right to abuse or to deride or to denigrate those in the home. So again, this is what the abuser does. Often, also talking about the abuser, they'll often minimize their abuse.
Okay.
They will often minimize their abuse. They will excuse their abuse. They will say things like, well, if she just would have listened to me, she would have had a better meal. If they'd have just listened to me, the pecan pie would have been much better. If they would just listened to me, their person would have won, the vote or whatever. If they would just listen to me, they would have gone to the right church. If they just listened to me, and the list goes on. So they minimize their abuse. They excuse their abuse. They excuse their abuse as maybe being instructive.
Right. Well, I was just trying to help.
I was just trying to help. Or in some cases, I was just joking, I didn't mean to tell her that she was overweight. I was just joking, about that dress or whatever. So they deny their abuse. And they dismiss their abuse. So they excuse their abuse, they deny their abuse, they dismiss their abuse. But at the end of the day, it's abuse. And everybody knows it, and everybody's hurt by it, and everybody, dreads, when this person walks into the room. This person basically takes the life out of the room. This person is the one who walks in the room, and everyone has dreaded them showing up. They come in with a swagger. They come in, and you can see the look on their face almost that they are there to abuse emotionally, verbally those in the room, and so this is what happens. And here's a little sidebar too. Emotional abuse is real, and the fact that it's emotional abuse, a lot of people, especially in our churches today, don't recognize it. As a matter of fact, I would argue that emotional abuse is a major problem in our churches in this way. In many of our churches, we dismiss it, or we minimize it, or we excuse the abuse. Some pastors, when it comes to maybe a husband-wife and a husband being very abusive emotionally, will use words like submit. In many cases, a pastor will tell the wife, you need to submit to your husband when he's being emotionally abusive. Or they will say, not only should you submit, but you should maybe love him through it. Maybe if you loved him more, he wouldn't be as abusive. And so again, a lot of times a pastor will use words or use maybe even the Bible to almost, allow this emotional abuse to occur. A verse that most pastors do not use when it comes to counsel, and I will argue they need to, is Malachi 2:16.
Okay.
Malachi 2:16, we know the first part of Malachi 2:16 where it says God hates divorce. Mm-hmm. Then the verse goes on to say, and God hates him who covers his wrongs. And take heed that you don't deal treacherously. So in other words, God is saying, you know what? Yeah, I hate divorce, but I also hate the one who causes and creates a situation, a scenario whereby you're covering your wrongs and you're dealing treacherously with the wife of your youth.
Pretty strong words, and also why it's important to read Scripture fully in context.
The entire verse,
Yep.
And so many pastors, and God bless them, they want to say things, well, you need to submit and you need to love them through it. When the Word of God says, also, husbands, love your wives the way Christ loved the church.
Right, the full counsel of the Word of God.
He doesn't abuse his bride. Jesus does not abuse his bride. So here are the results of abuse. So we're dealing with someone who has faced emotional abuse. We were dealing with someone, if you're just tuning in, the question is about, should I invite someone to my home for the holiday season who has been emotionally abusive?
Right.
So if you're just tuning in, we're talking about emotional abuse. And so here's some results of abuse. Number one, people who are emotionally abused are often broken, depressed, anxious, and drained. A person who's been emotionally abused by maybe a sibling, maybe a parent, maybe a spouse, they have this sense of brokenness. There is no joy in their life. They have this sense of depression. They're anxious. They're drained. It's a proverbial walking on eggshells. And so when a person is walking on eggshells, anytime an abusive person, an emotionally abusive person walks into a room, that's a real symptom. That's a real sign. Here's something else we don't think about. When you're in an emotionally abusive relationship, let's just take a husband and wife, for example. Beware that you're raising, very possibly, a next generation of males who will become abusers.
Say that again.
So if you are in an emotionally abusive marriage, and especially with the husband being abusive to the wife, which is in most cases, but not all. There's a lot of abusive wives out there towards husbands, so be mindful of that. But let's just take for the majority for right now, the husband being abusive to the wife. If a man is abusive to his wife, what's going to happen eventually, if there's not some boundaries, some guardrail, some change, you will raise a next generation of males who will become abusive to their wives, and you'll raise up a next generation of girls who will marry abusers.
Wow.
We forget that. Yeah. Pastors, I hope you're hearing what I just said. Because if we dismiss, if we discount, if we overlook, if we deny that emotional abuse is going on, then we're going to raise up a generation of males who become abusers, and we'll raise up a generation of girls who will marry abusers. Why is that? Because we do and we embrace what we know.
Right.
It's
generational cycles.
If you are raised in abuse, the probability is very high you will embrace abuse as you get older because it's what you know. It's what you know. It's not right. We don't like it. We don't endorse it, but it's what we know. So be mindful as well. There is an epidemic of women also, thirdly, who have lost the respect of their adult children because they excused their father's abuse.
Right.
Because emotionally, physically, etc.
Yeah. And when a husband is emotionally abusive to the wife, that does impact and affect the children.
Oh, exactly. And so when these children are getting older, they're going, Mom excused dad's abuse. Mom said, well, you know how your dad is, and he's not supposed to drink, but you just know how your dad is, and I just didn't know what to do, and my hands were tied. No, Mom. No, there's no excuse for abuse. There's no excuse for abuse. And what happens is these adult children now are old enough to see and remember and reflect what happened, and now they've lost respect for their mom. They love their mom, but they've lost respect for their mom. And so now you begin to see this pattern occur. So again, emotional abuse, if you're just tuning in, emotional abuse is what we're talking about. And again, beware that the abuser will often deny or excuse or placate, again, this abuse. So here's 10 signs real quickly of emotional abuse. Okay. How do you
Things
know,
to look out for.
How do you know, that this is something that I'm dealing with? What do I need to look out for, et cetera? So when you are being emotionally abused, one thing that you're feeling is you don't feel safe around this person. So in other words, you're at the holiday gathering, you're at the Thanksgiving meal, you're at your, in-laws' house, or they're at your house, whatever. And all of a sudden this person walks in that's been emotionally abusive, maybe throughout your life or throughout your marriage or whatever. You don't feel safe around this person. You just don't feel safe. You try to keep your distance, So that's the first sign that, hey, there's something inside of me says, you know what, keep your distance. I don't feel safe around them. Number two, when you're around someone who's emotionally abusive, what happens is whenever you bring something up, whenever you maybe even say to them, you know what, that wasn't very nice, whatever, they're going to become defensive. If they start insulting you, they start saying things about your church or about your politics or about, your food or what you brought or the gift, you gave them last year. And you say, that wasn't, come on, let's not go there. Or I don't want to really talk about that. They become defensive. What's wrong? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? What's your problem? They become defensive. Thirdly, in many cases, they don't want to hear your opinions and your choices are not heard. If everybody says, hey, what Christmas movie do you want to watch tonight? And you say, let's watch this or that. And all of a sudden they shut you down. So your opinions aren't heard, your choices are not heard, your interests are not respected. Fourthly, if you're kind of keeping count here, you're disregarded. You're voiceless. You're disregarded. No matter what you say, no matter what you want to do, you are disregarded. You're discounted, even in your own home. So this person will walk in, even into your own home, and they will disregard what you have to say, and they'll basically shut down your voice. Fifthly, anytime you challenge them or disagree with them, or maybe even politically, and this is going to happen a lot, I'm afraid, in the next couple of weeks, but they get enraged. They don't say, well, you do have a point there, or I didn't think of it that way, or, I had to go back and maybe do some, reflecting or some soul searching. They don't do that. They become enraged anytime you challenge them or disagree with their point or their position. Next, if you're keeping count, this is number 6. They care very little about, again, what you desire or need. They care very little about what you desire, need. They care very little about what you value. If you say, but the Bible says, they go, I don't care about the Bible. Or if you say, but this really bothered me, back, when I was a kid, they go, I don't care. Get over it.
Right.
And so they care very little about what you desire, what you need, what you value, what you want, which means this. One of the signs and symptoms of emotional abuse is that, again, whenever this person walks in, you feel like you're walking on eggshells. The proverbial, I'm walking on eggshells, and nothing I do meets their approval. Nothing I do matters to them. Nothing I do is ever good enough. If you come in and go, hey, I graduated, from college, this semester, and they go, well, you didn't get magna cum laude. So you graduated, but you didn't. I got magna cum laude, but you didn't. So in other words, they're better. They one up. Nothing ever meets their approval. I got an A-. Why didn't you get an A+? Our team won by 1 touchdown. Why didn't they win by 10 touchdowns? I mean, nothing you do is ever good enough. Whenever you're around them, therefore you feel anxious. You just feel anxious. You just feel stressed. Next, they make you feel isolated, and they want to intimidate you. And this is basically their go-to. They want to intimidate you, put you down. And not only that, you have this chronic sense of stress and dread and PTSD. So what to do? So if you're just tuning in, our show's almost over, but we're talking about what happens when an emotionally abusive person comes into your home or wants to be a part of your holiday. What do you do? What recourse do you have when this emotionally abusive person comes into your life? Number one, you expose the abuse. You let people know this is an abusive person. You let your spouse know if it's his brother. You let your spouse know if this is your sister. You let your spouse know if this is their parent or their in-law. But you expose the abuse. You let people know this person is abusive and they're going to be abusive to me. They've been abusive towards me. It's an emotional abuse. No, there's no bruising or scars that you can see, but the emotional abuse is very real. Number two, you create boundaries concerning the abuse. You create boundaries. In this case, this person is saying, I'm not inviting these family members to my Thanksgiving.
Right.
That's a boundary. So you create boundaries concerning the abuse. Thirdly, you create a team of caring and loving people to support you. So when this emotionally abusive person begins to say emotionally abusive things, others may chime in and say, dude, that's not good. That's not right. That we're not going to go down that road. We're not playing that game. We're not going to tolerate that in this year, this holiday. If you want to say that, go somewhere else. But you have others that will again support you, have your back, as they say. And so what are the results? Again, if you're just tuning in, what are the results of when a person creates strong boundaries, exposes the abuse, and creates a team of caring, loving people? The first result of the person who's been emotionally abused is relief. You have a sense of relief. You can now enjoy the holiday. You can now enjoy the Thanksgiving meal. You can now enjoy, the other family members who come in. You can now enjoy, watching that Christmas movie with, your kids or whatever. The first result, whenever you create a boundary against the emotional abuser, is relief. Some have described it, secondly, feeling like they've been paroled. They feel like they've been paroled. They feel like they've been set free. They feel like they've won the victory. They feel like, they have a new lease on life. Thirdly, you regain your power because you do have power. If it's your home, it's your home. If it's your Thanksgiving table, it's your Thanksgiving table. And so the emotionally abusive person does not have the right to usurp your power. So you regain your power. You feel like you're paroled. There's a sense of relief. Fourthly, you regain your self-worth. You don't feel, dismissed, derided, demoralized. You regain your self-worth. You realize, hey, this is my home. This is my Thanksgiving meal. These are my kids, this is my Christmas tree or whatever. But you regain your self-worth and you don't have to, again, submit to someone else's abuse. And here's the last thing that, again, we need to, recognize. You actually become healthier. You actually are physically, emotionally, spiritually healthier. People who have put boundaries against the emotional abusive person have said, you know what? I don't have, the upset stomach that I used to have. I don't have the headaches I used to have. Right. I don't have the spiritual doubt that I used to have. I don't have the depression I used to have. So again, to this family who's writing about the emotional abuser coming to their home, I would say this. Number one, create boundaries, even during the holidays. Yep. Because at the end of the day, and if you've heard nothing else that I say today, there's no excuse for abuse. There's no excuse for abuse. Take charge, take control of your life, and that'll be the best thing for you. And hear this, in closing, that will be the best thing for them. Because maybe one day the emotionally abusive person will realize, you know what, this is not cool. This is not right. This is something that I need to change. This is something I need to rethink. This is something I need to do differently because the people around me have created these boundaries and I'm realizing I cannot be emotionally abusive and be welcomed into homes, into families, into holiday gatherings. There's no excuse for abuse. Take charge and control of your life. create the boundaries even during the holidays. That's the best thing for you and the best thing for them.
Well, there you have it from the Family Answer Man, creating boundaries guilt-free when dealing with emotional abuse during the holidays. Hopefully, this episode has encouraged you and inspired you to have a stronger, healthier, happier family.